when we talk about culture, what is culture and what is the value of culture? If we can put a value on it.
Yeah. I think it's really hard to understate the value of culture in our society and in our species specifically. To me, it really is. You can break it down as small as like family culture, your community and your city, obviously state, country, and then us as like a planet and species. And I always think of it as I gravitate a lot towards like the arts, right? Like entertainment, like movies, music, museums, art, in a like paintings and museum stuff you'd see at MoMA or the Met, stuff like that, and also just how we interact with each other, how we communicate. A lot of what our culture is these days, I think, is infused through social media and technology. And it really is everything that helps define and inform us as social beings, right?
Yeah.
So it's very that it can be as small as our relationship. It can be as large as our entire planet and technology. But to me, I gravitate towards like the arts and the entertainment of culture, and how we interact. I'm sure there's a million different explanations and a million different descriptions and definitions, but I think it can all culminate to variety of that response, right? I mean, how do you define it? How do you?
Well, that's why I'm asking you.
And I mean, it can be also as specific as, I mean, I work in fashion, so I think culture can be communicated through fashion quite a bit, right?
Yeah.
Even in like cities, like that's actually one of the things that I notice very quickly when I get off the plane into New York or into Chicago, especially again, working and living in downtown, is just how different the fashion is and how much more fashion forward New York is. Also, that is, one of the cultural points and cultural, meccas we keep using of fashion is New York City, right? And that's very noticeable, right? It's very black and white, right? You see what people are wearing, right? You see how people are dressing themselves, and that's something that's very obvious, and something that I like as well. Again, one of the things that took me to New York was the culture, and specifically fashion and art, entertainment, museums, the people. All of that, the culture is what defines cities. It's what defines us, and it's limitless. And it's, to put a value on it, again, I think it's not impossible. It's really hard to do. It really is what makes us human, right? And I'm sure there's different species that have cultures and different dialects and things of that nature. But to the extent that we have it as humans is unmatched, right? You can't sit there and tell me that there's more culture in a pod of orcas than there is in like a pod of humans, right? There's no way, right?
And then because culture is so differently, there could be a culture that you kind of vibe with more, and you gravitate towards that,
Exactly.
Whether it be like a lot of times the word culture is thrown around in terms of like organizations and businesses, companies, sports teams, states, cities, and having those cultures there attracts or detracts people depending on like what
they hold value.
Yeah. It's value, like the values. Culture is basically like the representation of values in a way, right?
Yeah, I 100% agree, and I think that's another reason why I wanted to move to New York, is because I saw what they valued and I saw what the culture was like there, and I wanted to be surrounded by that, right? So one of the things that's great about culture that's different from your family is you can pick and choose where you want to be influenced. You can pick and choose what you want to be influenced by, right? And so one of the easiest ways to do that is to just put yourself right in the center of that. And I'm very fortunate and privileged to be able to do that. A lot of people can't pick and choose where they want to live. They can't pick and choose their family. No one can pick and choose their family. Some people can't pick and choose what cultures influence them, right? They're inhibited by just having to stay where they are because of financial or social, whatever reasons. But again, I'm fortunate enough to be able to pick and choose where I want to be and what I want to influence me.
Yeah.
And again, New York City, because of its diversity, because of its density, because of everyone else deciding way before me deciding, I want to go there and make a life, and I want to go there and be surrounded and be influenced by the culture that now is New York City. It just, again, seemed like the natural next step for me.
Yeah.
And what... There's so many different cultures in New York. Again, you can find whatever you want there.
Yeah.
Right? You don't really have to try very hard either. Again, like it slaps you in the face. Whereas other cities, you have to put a lot more effort into finding, what culture or what subgroup or what counterculture, even for that matter, you really have to make a lot of effort. But again, in New York, I mean, the odds are just in your favor. There's so many people. There's so many different things. There's something for everybody there, right? Mm-hmm. If you live in a small town of 150,000 people where I grew up, it's just much fewer and farther between, right? And there's not as much diversity, so there's just naturally the odds are not in your favor, right?
Yeah.
So as someone who loves just new, interesting, different things and trying to experience a lot of different things and trying to get a snippet of a lot of different things, I think of myself professionally and also personally as a generalist, and I love this idea of becoming an expert generalist, of trying to open myself up to as many different things as possible, and I feel like people who have a broader view on life and view on humanity, I just feel like that makes you a better person, having or being able to digest a lot of different things, a lot of different people, I feel like makes you more empathetic and makes you more understanding and just broadens your view of the world. And I think that's good for society and that's good for humanity. So I feel like one of the best ways to do that is to go to a place where there's a lot of things happening, in the most simplest form. And again, I feel like that's where New York is. Obviously, New York has its shortcomings, like it's very much a bubble of its own. We're in a political time. It's very blue, obviously. And I acknowledge that. But again, that's what I like. I like the variety, the culture, everything about it.
I like what I like.